and gentlemen, yesterday I hosted the Chief of the South African Navy Prestige Charity Ball, and I called for all that were in attendance to not ignore what is currently happening around the world, especially within our country. As a South African citizen, you cannot afford to be ignorant on the current affairs and the state of our nation. As a parent, you cannot find yourself not being concerned about the future of your child or children. As Chief of the Navy, I am entrusted in providing mission-ready and capable Navy that must be able to patrol and keep our country's territorial waters safe, in order for my fellow South African to feel safe and enjoy the resources and wealth that is found in our oceans. Let me put it in a simple way, for ease of understanding for any ordinary South African. The point I want to bring across is that the South African Navy is not just a military force. It is a protector of our sovereignty, our maritime resources, and our citizens. Like what our former President and Commander-in-Chief, Dr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, said during the International Fleet Review conducted in Cape Town on 5th April 1997, and I quote, "The sea is a vital national interest, and that is why we maintain the Navy. As a nation, we believe in the freedom of the seas. That is a matter of national strategic interest. We are a maritime nation trading all over the world. We accept our obligation to combine with other maritime nations to uphold the freedom of the seas and to protect our national interest through naval power," close quote. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to internalize the fact that our coastline stretches approximately 2,798 kilometers, and that South Africa is a maritime nation. Our country's main trade routes include the maritime route via the Cape of Good Hope with the major ports of Durban and Richards Bay, which are linked by N2 corridor and are vital for both regional and international trade. They handle a wide range of exports and imports, including coal, chrome, crude oil, mineral products, vehicles, foodstuff, and fruits. The other significant ports include Cape Town, Gqeberha, East London, Mossel Bay, and Saldanha. In the same breath, our country is losing in the region of over 6 billion rands annually due to illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing. Unmonitored vessels in our sea pose a risk to the Republic. At any given time, we have over 600 vessels in our territorial waters, of which some are involved in human trafficking, some with illegal fishing, some stealing our minerals, some smuggling weapons, while some polluting our beautiful seas and beaches, but to name but a few. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have to appreciate the fact that 98% of our country's trade volume moves by sea, making it the lifeblood of our international trade. Our maritime trade contributes significantly to our country's economy, with seaborne trade accounting for about 58% of total trade volume. Furthermore, our country's entire ocean economy, which includes maritime transport, is projected to contribute between 4.5 and 4.8% of GDP by 2038. And these projections are made by academia and several organizations such as the International Monetary Fund, the South African Reserve Bank, and various other international bodies and local analysts. What is of concern is that in making these projections, these organizations might be overlooking a crucial element which speaks to appreciating who and how do we protect our maritime resources of interest. Our Navy is the first line of defense against threats that might emanate from the sea, whether piracy, illicit fishing, or other forms of maritime crimes. Our Navy must keep the critical shipping lanes safe and free so that our economy can prosper. Should or when disaster occurs at sea, our Navy must provide help through search and rescue operations, besides being part of the humanitarian assistance within the country and in neighboring regions. In order to carry out all these important roles, we must focus on the capability and resources of our Navy. We need to modernize our Navy to match today's complex and dynamic challenges. We need to invest in our Navy because that will also mean we will be investing in our youth. Training and career opportunities in the Navy can inspire a whole new generation of South Africans, providing them with skills and experience that will benefit the nation as a whole. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, The continuous absence of the Navy at sea is dangerous for our country and any maritime country for that matter. Today, as the country, we are battling the high pollution of illegal immigrants. Our society and the future of our kids is being destroyed by drugs which gets into their hands through the seas. I invite you to read an article which was recently published on the Defense Web titled Opinion, Between Two Oceans and the South African Navy in Crisis, written by Nicholas Gotzel, a member of parliament, who is a member of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense. In there, he makes mention that, and I quote, various stakeholders in society tend to see expenditure on defense as being detrimental to expenditure in an economic realm. Yet, a robust defense force is essential to protect sovereignty, secure 80% of trade through maritime routes, support domestic stability, and lead African peacekeeping missions. Ultimately, a strong and capable defense force remains a core component of ensuring internal and external stability and safeguarding the conditions for positive economic outcomes, close quote. For our cabinet to approve the reduction of the SANDF workforce or strength is actually nothing far from telling us to implement a defense version of what General Mkhwanazi has disclosed in the Madlanga Commission with regards to the closure of the political killing task team. Closing down the SANDF is like having a house without walls, effective CCTV systems, and reaction capability should thieves violate your space uninvited, or buying a car and not taking an insurance, or not having a life cover for yourself and family. Yesterday, I shared with those that attended the Prestige Ball that in the past week, I was in Australia to attend the Indo-Pacific Sea Power Conference 2025. Whilst I was interacting with the chiefs of navies from different maritime countries at the conference, the chief of the Kenyan Navy mentioned that a week before coming to Australia, his Navy caught a ship from East Asia that was carrying a large consignment of drugs, which was destined for Mozambique. And you will agree with me that Mozambique was not the final destination, but maybe South Africa was. The Philippine chief also brought to my attention the fact that on a continuous basis, they arrest ships carrying drugs whose destination is Southern Africa. So what I am stressing is that our prolonged absence at sea due to non-availability of serviceable ships and submarines, all because of under-resourcing of our Navy, should concern you as fellow South Africans. I often find myself questioning whether those responsible for making significant decisions, particularly regarding the funding of our defense force, if they may be directly or indirectly influenced by these drug cartels, illegal traders, maritime criminals, and human traffickers. Because it will appear that this consistent underfunding and incapacitating of the South African Navy and the Defense Force in general is to ensure the success of the operations that undermine our nation, compromise its sovereignty, and jeopardize the future of our children. The unpatriotic and what appears to be a sellout posture of defunding the SA Navy and the SANDF in general leaves me with a question of whether the people behind what I would like to call nonsense, if they are not busy with the mission to privatize the SA Navy and the SANDF. Seeing that the private security is a lucrative business in our country and it is replacing the state security machinery, we must refuse this kind of unconstitutional policy decisions. I am telling you today that should the SA Navy's roles fall into private hands and the same government that is today telling us that there is no money to fund the Navy, they will use the government reserves to fund those private security forces. To add salt to this wound, attempts have been made by certain government departments to bring a foreign company to come patrol our waters. As the Navy, we rejected this sellout and unpatriotic decision. Maritime security narrative is about protecting our way of life. Our oceans define who we are. It feeds our people, sustains our economy, and connects us to other nations through the Indian and Atlantic Ocean. When our maritime domain is secure, our nation stands secured. But for that, we must first secure ourselves from within through good governance, coherent laws, accountable institutions, and leaders who put national interests above competition and personal greed. We must invest not only in hardware, but also in our people, our sailors, our engineers, the analysts, and the families that give meaning to our platforms, because they are all the center of gravity, of our gravity. All I am putting to you this evening is that we cannot continue being silent observers of our country being at risk of losing its sovereignty. We need to advocate for a stronger, well-funded defense force. We need to think about what is it at stake for not having visibility in the Navy present at sea. We cannot be ignorant of what is happening around the world. Look at what the West is doing in the Caribbean, Venezuela to be precise. With so much military power in terms of their warships deployed near Venezuela, and the world is currently speculating a possible invasion. On one hand, there are also these ongoing military crises between Russia and Ukraine. Then the West, on the other, are also pointing their guns towards Nigeria, threatening them with military action. The question we should be asking ourselves as South Africans is, who will the West target next in our African continent? Ladies and gentlemen, let us not think we spared from this devilish bullying of the world. With that in mind, I say we need to be found ready and not be a repeat of what Libya went through after it was accepted back into the so-called world democracy. Libya's military was caught with their pants down due to failing to rejuvenate itself and thinking that the world was on their side and that they will never attack them. All I'm putting to you this evening is that we cannot continue to be silent observers, our country being taken to dogs. We need to advocate for a stronger, well-funded defense force. We need to think about what is at stake for not having a Navy present at sea. With the responsibility entrusted in me to command the seas of our country, and the love I have for our motherland, I find it difficult to separate emotions from my responsibility, and I'm not apologetic about it. Fellow South Africans, I would like to leave you with those few words to internalize, ponder on when you go to sleep tonight. As you lock your gates and doors in preparation to go to bed, ask yourselves, is our seas safe? Ask yourself if you are comfortable with what is going on in our country. Ask yourselves if the future of your children is in good hands or not. Before I close, I want to make mention that I regard my job as a calling, as I have been serving the people from the tender age of 17, and to this day, after 40 years, I regard serving the people and my country as the only thing I know best.